This week on The Big Room.
You're new too, and you haven't asked a lot of questions.
Saruman. Nobody was suspicious.
They're in the same name club. Of course they'd be on the same side.
As soon as I heard their names, I was like, well, this guy's bad, obviously. Like, you don't, and you can't
This guy
talk like
uses an
that. The
Android.
voice he has, yeah.
I mean, just
just
look
have
at
always
him.
been so confused by like why that wasn't like a dead giveaway. Like seems pretty sus. But like,
Welcome back to the Big Room. We're doing Lord of the Rings for 3 weeks, and with Josh Reed,
Hey,
special guest.
It's me.
Our second guest
Thank
ever,
you.
and our first guest whose name isn't David.
that's really true. This is fun
Very
fact.
true.
I want to have Speed on because he's read the books, which is a feat I cannot accomplish because my brain's too small, and Tolkien writes too much about flowers and Samwise singing songs.
Yes.
So Speed's here to help us. Nick has never seen these movies before, except for this one.
Yep.
And you remembered
So great.
5%
None
of it?
Yeah. Yeah. I had seen this one before, but it was very much just I was in the room and not paying attention.
Gotcha. I also want to mention, because it looks bad, we have 4 men on screen. We did
I
not.
think it's pretty great.
We did, we did not throw the woman out. She's just at my desk.
I'm here.
So
You
like,
can't get rid of me that easily.
No. And someone's
I live.
gotta.
I live here.
Someone's got to switch the cameras because I'm awful
Someone's
at
got
it.
She's
to
the
edit
fact
this
checker.
Yeah.
show.
Yep.
I'm very integral.
So, Fellowship of the Ring. These movies are cool because all 3 were filmed at the same time. They just did back to back to back. They filmed for
2 years, I
2
think.
years, 99 and 2000, I think. Something like that. It released this one, Fellowship, released December 19th, 2001 in the U.S.
My mom's birthday.
Ooh.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Happy
Happy
birthday,
birthday,
bro.
Mom.
The
Shout out.
the runtime. I want to note, we watched and will watch the extended editions because they're more better. The theatrical release, this movie is 2 hours and 58 minutes.
Jeez.
The extended edition for this movie is 3 hours and 28 minutes. That's what we
Amazing.
watched. And it's 2 Blu-rays.
We
Yeah,
had to
it is.
Switch the disc.
So we had to switch the disc. I was
What
like,
part does it pause at?
so there
I
is an
forget.
intermission.
Right after the Fellowship is formed. Like,
That's what I thought. Yeah. Yeah. As soon as Pippin's like,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, Elrond's
good
like, the
spot for
9!
it.
And then disc 2. And I'm like, great.
You need people of intelligence on this sort of mission quest thing.
The budget, I'm not sure how they delineate, but the budget for Fellowship of the Ring apparently was $93 million. And it made $883.4 million at the box office.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
How do you...
Several.
It's just unbelievable.
Several dollars.
Now, like, Marvel movies have, like, $400 million budgets. This movie was
That's
98,
insane.
90 or 93 million. Now, adjusted for inflation, it's like 135 million, I think.
But
still.
Yeah,
Still.
Oh my god.
And it almost made $1 billion.
Yeah.
And there's 2 more. So, cool. I have some fun facts about the cast before we get
I'm excited.
into the meat and potatoes.
Oh, wow. Stop the. Yeah. We're done. We've done it.
Nick doesn't get it yet. So, my
One
first
day.
one is the person who auditioned for Frodo that is not Elijah Wood was Gyllenhaal. And that, no thank you.
Nope.
There's
No,
a lot
thank
of
you.
those.
Now, there are
apply.
worse ones. There's a couple like this person auditioned for where I go, if that person was hired, it would have ruined
Yeah,
the
we would
movies.
not be here. It would be weird.
Sean Connery was approached to play Gandalf, but did not understand the role.
Nope.
Thank God.
He went on to do
Pass.
League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Yes. Patrick Stewart turned it down after disliking the script. What the
Crazy,
heck,
man.
I can
Patrick?
see him, though.
Really?
Yeah, you can see
He
him.
yeah.
Big
he
beard,
would have
long
done a
hair,
good job.
great. The weird thing would be Patrick Stewart with hair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would have been alarming.
Now, Aragorn.
This is the hard one.
This
I know
is
what you're
the
going to
hard
say.
one.
And it's the
This is the worst.
I believe in everyone, but this is what
This is the worst. Nicolas Cage.
Nope.
no.
100% no.
Turned
Yep.
down, like was offered and
God.
turned down the role
Yeah.
due to family obligations. Can you imagine?
Excuse me?
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
No. Frodo, you gotta go.
Yeah.
You gotta run to Mordor.
Yeah. No, thank you.
It wouldn't have worked.
Is there a character he could have played?
No. Now, almost as bad, I think.
I don't think no, he would have it doesn't fit.
Almost as bad is an actor that read for Samwise Gamgee, James Corden.
Oh yeah, that is true.
Please,
God,
this is
no.
before he was like James Corden,
you
like late night
May-
show.
It could have altered his life and made
It
him a
could
better
have-
If it
person.
was before,
It could have altered his life. But
He has the same
Samwise is
look.
perfect.
Sean
I mean, he
Astin.
is. I mean, he is.
There's no more perfect cast than this one, and I maintain that.
Those are
every day
the
of my life.
bulletin ones. I'll run through the rest really quickly. Bruce Willis was interested in being Boromir, and Liam Neeson actually passed on that role. Orlando Bloom initially auditioned for Faramir, who you do not know yet, before
Oh, yeah.
landing Legolas. Gandalf, Christopher Lee originally auditioned
did,
for
that's
Gandalf,
true.
but was deemed too old. He's
too old.
Carl, how many years do you think he has on
Ian McKellen.
Ian McKellen?
Wizard years? I don't know. They look pretty ancient.
He's 17 years
So-
older.
Not crazy.
Really?
Really?
He was born in 1922.
That's
Crazy. He what a person, Christopher
James
Lee.
Yeah,
Bond was
so-
based
And he
on
knows
him,
he
right?
knew Tolkien. He
Yeah,
talked to
Christopher
Tolkien.
Lee was the only member of the cast that had met Tolkien.
Yep.
And he served as an impromptu advisor for scenes at times. One
He did.
important deleted scene that we will get to in 2 movies from now
Yeah.
that we will not talk about. but
Yeah.
Josh knows the one.
It's a good one.
It involves the proper reaction to being stabbed.
Yeah.
Um,
He knows it.
now, the Bilbo one I think is cool. Yeah, he killed people.
I hope he just goes, I have been stabbed.
Christopher Lee was a Nazi hunter in World War II.
Yeah.
Like,
Whoa.
Probably
dude-
the coolest person to ever live.
Yeah.
Top 5.
Huh.
Yeah. Ian Holm, who is the Bilbo actor from these movies, he previously played Frodo in a 1981 radio adaptation of Lord of the Rings and was cast as Bilbo after Peter Jackson remembered this. One more fact, Sylvester McCoy, who you will recognize
I thought you
in
were
a
going to say
second.
Stallone. I was like,
Nope.
no way.
Stallone is Pippin.
Smeagol.
intelligence.
But Mary is still the same actor.
Yeah. Sylvester McCoy was contacted to play Bilbo and was kept in place as a potential Bilbo for 6 months before Jackson went with Ian Holm. He later played Radagast in The Hobbit.
Oh, yeah, sure.
So, sure.
That's perfect.
That's all my
He was a great Radagast.
fun facts. He's a cool Radagast.
Yeah.
He's one of the highlights of those terrible movies.
Yeah, not Peter Jackson's fault. Anyway.
No, not Peter Jackson's fault at all. Guillermo del Toro's fault.
Yeah, / the studio. Demand.
Mostly the
man.
studio. They filmed like battle scenes for like 3 months
Yeah, it's bad. But
because they had no script. For
one of
Hobbit.
the best, anyway, we're not talking about The Hobbit, but one of the best scenes in any Lord of the Rings movie, though, there's one top level scene, anyway, in the first
Okay.
movie. Anyway, move on.
We'll never watch this. So, Lord of the Rings. I watched these movies. So I was not allowed to watch Lord of the Rings growing up because my mom thought wizards are the devil, just like Harry Potter. So I was not allowed to watch them until I managed to, at like 13 or 14, like go. Tolkien was friends with C.S. Lewis.
Yep.
It's allegorical. Let me watch it, and that got it through for me.
That's so
I
funny.
did not. So I had watched clips of it. Most of how I experienced Lord of the Rings as a child, younger than that, was through the video games. Mainly the excellent Return of the King game.
I think I still have it, actually, on my
I own
PlayStation 2.
2 copies.
Oh, nice.
Because
Amazing.
it's unbelievable.
Let's break it out.
Yes, but after that, we watched some battle scenes at Steven's house a million years ago.
course.
But I watched them for the first time, 1 through 3, on a portable DVD player,
That's
what a
depressing.
throwback.
just as Peter Jackson intended.
One with like a tiny little screen that
With
popped
tiny
up,
flip up and the things in the bottom. Yeah.
like a at max 8-inch screen.
100%.
Yeah.
And you know what? I will tell you that the size of the screen does not stop you from sobbing at the end of Return of the King.
No, it's,
It
yeah.
just doesn't matter.
Because these movies are beyond any of that.
So I want to know did you see them in theaters?
Saw them in theaters. My dad said, hey, we need to go see Lord of the Rings, which I'd not seen any previews for, except for the cups we're drinking out of.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Burger King released these cups. And I was like,
I would say
What's
cheers,
this
but they might
show?
fall apart.
what's this show? What's this movie? And that's all I knew about it. My dad said, we're going to go see Lord of the Rings because Tolkien was a Christian. We're going to go check it out. And I said, okay, sure. I think I got out of school early. So I was like, I'm in.
Oh, heck yeah.
And I did not realize there was 3 movies. Like we didn't know anything about it. And so we get to the end of the movie. And I quickly realized in my 9th grade heart, there's
There's
what is going on? They're walking, getting ready to go to the marshes and stuff, and I'm like, no. And I was like, Dad. And he's like, there's 2 more. There's 2. I remember my dad's face, bright as the sun, smiling so big. There's 2 more. I was like, oh, phew. When do they come out?
But did you have to wait in real time for the next
I
one to
did.
come out?
Yep. And they came out each December. So it wasn't, it was
every year.
every year.
Yeah.
So it's 2001, right? And then 2002, 2003. So I saw each of them. Yeah. In theaters following. Oh my gosh. Great moment. Watching a movie for the first time, not knowing what it is.
I can't imagine.
Unbelievable.
I didn't even do that
joy.
with Dune. I read the book first. Oh
Yeah.
man.
You still read the book first if you can on a movie, but my goodness. Yeah, that's my first Lord of the Rings story.
So
Oh my gosh.
they filmed it all together.
All
right?
together,
What
yeah.
was the timeline on that? Do you know?
2 years.
Okay.
99 through 2000.
I was
Yeah,
just
I think
thinking
it was
it
two.
must have sucked to be part of the cast and to know everything about the last movie and have to wait a couple
I
years
see what
before
you mean.
people
Oh,
see
yeah.
it.
For the spoilers, you mean?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Daniel, you were gonna say something.
I was just gonna say my first Lord of the Rings experience was it might have been because of Cameron again, just like Star Wars. But I think I was like 14 or 15 and just by myself decided to put them on like in the middle of the afternoon and trying to watch the first one. I was not into it. I was like, I have no idea. Well, I had no idea what was going on. I didn't really know what to expect, just
Yeah.
like Josh said, like the first time. So watching it again with you many years later was much better.
Yeah, so we watched these with your sister, who had
Yeah.
not seen them before. I remember we finished Return of the King the night before the first CIY we went on with you.
Oh, dang.
So, we finished Return of the King at 12:30 a.m. and then woke up at 4 and drove to Lee University.
Classic.
wow.
But yeah,
that's
so
crazy.
I love, just like we did with you, I love watching Lord of the Rings with people and like giving them the remote so they can pause and ask questions. Carl, what's your history with these?
It's a pretty brief history. Like this is kind of my first like serious watching.
Really?
Like
man.
it's always been a passive thing.
So
Like
much fun.
I've had friends that like really like the franchise and I've been like, okay, I know what happens. Like I know lines throughout all the movies.
I didn't
but
know
like
you
I've
two
kind
were
of
in
just
similar
it's always
boats.
kind of been a passing exposure to it.
you didn't
I don't
latch
know.
onto
I've never
this,
been
like-
like super. Yeah, I've never been super into fantasy. That's not like sci-fi is more of my genre.
high
I kind
fantasy.
of dipped
This
my
is-
toe into it with like Harry Potter and then like Game of Thrones, but that's not really fantasy, So I don't know, but I was really surprised because like a lot of the camera work, and here I go with my cinematography, but like was really impressive. Like, and it felt like the way that Gandalf goes into that room and like you feel his size and like the scale of it and all. It's like, oh my god.
Well, they had
and not to
two-
mention, like the technical stuff too that they did to like make everything feel
Yeah, they had two bag
at
ends.
scale, but.
So they had a
crazy.
small bag end for Ian McKellen to be in to look huge, and then they had a normal sized one to film Bilbo in so that he
Yeah.
looked normal. So
That's
they had two
wild.
sets, and
Yeah.
then in scenes where they're together, it's a lot
So-
of forced perspective.
So the cart, talk of the cart when
Yeah.
when Gandalf and Frodo first meet each other, Gandalf's basically sat like here, and Frodo sat here
Like
physically,
2 or 3 feet back.
but it looks like they're side by side. So go watch the behind the scenes. The behind the scenes is as good as the movies.
I say
Yeah.
I want to
Nuts.
watch behind the scenes about a lot of movies, but definitely this one.
It's
Yeah.
I might
important.
actually do it on this one.
It's nuts.
you were saying that you still how it works. You still don't get it.
Yeah. Sorry, I just hit the wrong camera buttons. No, I understand the concept of forced perspective, but I can't grasp how it like actually works. Like
blows
I
my
get
mind.
when people explain it, like I get it,
Well,
but
you've-
I don't.
You're bearing the lead. You've
I don't
done
get it. Yeah, I was at I did a tour of like a movie lot, and they had like a little setup where you could sit. I think it was for Lord of the Rings, and it was like a little like table and a mug and stuff. And so I've sat in it, and like I have pictures of me and my friend.
Still doesn't compete.
And
I
she's super
still don't
small,
get it.
and Danielle's huge.
I
and she
still don't
doesn't
get it.
It's
Because
magic.
like everything's moving.
Movie magic,
How do you
man.
keep track
Movie
of
magic.
the right thing?
There's also
cameras are happening.
The Hobbits all had little people body doubles that they wore like
Yeah.
creepy masks of the actual
They're so
actors.
crazy, yeah.
So in scenes like in this film where Arwen is riding with
Yeah.
Frodo to Rivendell, that's a little person wearing a Frodo mask, which is super cool.
Yeah.
So they all like bonded. I mean, this
and
is
they're friends with all the cast.
yeah,
too.
they are. They still meet.
awesome.
We just lost
Bernard Hill.
Theoden. Yeah, Bernard Hill, like Saturday or Sunday.
He wasn't in this one, right?
He's not in this.
No.
He's in Two Towers
We'll have his sword next
and
year.
Return of the King. And we may have his sword here. next week. Not his actual, but a replica.
Well, you
We'll
never know.
replace the
He could have
baseball bat.
he could have made this one.
a sword.
Yeah. Oh, another. Oh, never mind. I forgot what I was going to say. Shoot. I had a really good. Hold on. What were we talking about? I had a really good thing to say.
Swords.
Force
Swords.
perspective.
Family,
Forced perspective.
everybody,
Little
the guy that
people,
just passed
Skip
away.
it. Ignore me.
They read.
Ignore me.
They do every year.
Oh, I got it. Thank you, guys. That was so helpful. Some of the sets are usable now. The Green Dragon pub that they're in when they're like singing their song is a working pub now. So
Really? We
you
gotta
can
go to
go to New Zealand
Let's
and
go.
stay in Hobbiton. And Hobbit Week is actually during the week of my birthday. So
How
I
fitting.
feel like we should announce to the world today we're all going.
111th
All right, I'm in.
birthday.
11-1.
That's my dream day.
11th.
11-1st.
So, shall we go
shall.
through the plot loosely? I want to
Yeah.
know your thoughts. You said you had a couple questions. Danielle
so
said she
excited.
had a question.
Just one question.
Where's yours plot wise? Like, should we just open with that?
Mine could be several places plot wise.
Let's open with yours.
Sure, we'll open with my question. So my question is one of the things that annoys me about Lord of the Rings. I know. Is I don't understand. Is it just a coincidence that Galadriel's horde of elves all decides to leave for the west when these events are happening, or are they like, the world's kind of bad right now, we're just gonna leave? Like, sorry humanity, we're out. Like
The elves are so.
that's
They're
rude.
such a different. They're like they can't die unless they're killed.
Right.
Yep.
So they have such a different understanding of. It's like they live in the world in a different color and a different language a little bit.
Yeah.
So I don't even know how best to answer
So
that question.
I
there's-
just get mad because I'm
There's
like,
a
Yeah, I
line.
get ya.
why?
There's a line that Galadriel says in the movie that hints maybe at a possible explanation right after Frodo tempts her with the ring.
Mm-hmm.
I will give it to you, basically. And she
Yeah.
turns blue and does, instead of a dark lord, they will have a queen. And she does the whole blue.
Not dark but terrible.
Yeah. She, right after she comes down from that, she says, I have passed the test.
I had a question about that.
And she
yeah.
says, I will now go to the west.
Remain Galadriel. Yeah.
Yep, I will remain Galadriel and retire to the west. So
Yeah, a lot of it makes sense
those
towards the
elves
third
all
movie as
bone
well.
out right
Yeah.
after that. And then they do, there's more West talk in
Yeah.
Return of the King. So,
They basically have come to Middle Earth and don't belong here, and they're like, there's not like gods in Lord of the Rings. Like there's no like god. However, there are. The best thing we can kind of say is like angels.
yeah,
probably.
the Maiar.
Yeah, and so they're kind of a little
Gandalf.
higher than that. and
Gandalf is
so-
a Maiar. Actually,
okay.
Durin's
Yeah.
Bane is a Maiar, but like the dark side of the Maiar. The Balrog
Yeah.
that Gandalf fights. Those are both Maiar, but there's like good Maiar in there.
More-
I bet. So think like angels
Yeah.
and demons.
So
kind of.
Sauron isn't even the main bad guy. In these movies, he is, but there's a bigger guy named Morgoth.
Yeah.
And that's why they say, it is a Balrog of Morgoth. This foe is beyond any of you. Run! That part. Oh, no. I unclipped this.
Yeah, there's-
Keep talking. I unclipped this.
Oh my gosh, he's deaf.
I'm so...
There's a lot of. I went down a rabbit hole with all of that Morgoth, Maiar, all that stuff that's more in the Silmarillion, and it's so above my head. It's like to
crazy.
understand that stuff, you have to commit yourself to studying it,
It's crazy.
like Stephen Colbert, and become like it has to be like a life passion for you.
Yeah.
and I'm just not there.
It's the first chapter of Silmarillion answers a lot of that, though.
Or at
anyway.
minimum,
I'll
watch more
never-
than one time.
Yeah, I mean, I've watched these probably 10 or 12 times. And
Yeah.
I still miss. I'm catching things as we watched
Oh,
it
yeah.
last night. So what are some of your
So is Gandalf born then, or is he like just happens to be?
He just happens to
Oh,
be
that's
is
a
probably
good
the best
question.
way. So he's probably more... Yeah, happens to be. I can't remember. Yeah, if you want to really read the first chapter of Silmarillion, answers a lot of that.
and there's also like
Yeah.
can Maiar
All
die?
wizards are that thing too.
All wizard. Well, I don't know
Say
about
that
that.
again.
Are all wizards Maiar?
I couldn't remember what
Yes,
the.
there's
think-
only
okay.
5 of them. I'm pretty sure they're all at least
Oh.
Meyer.
We know about
others,
3:
but-
Saruman, Gandalf, and Radagast.
and there's 2 blue wizards who
And they
we
all
don't
have the
know
color
about.
designation, or is that
Gandalf the
just
gray,
Gandalf?
Radagast the brown, Saruman the white, and then the 2 blue wizards.
So they go to other.
Is it a
lands.
ranking thing, like black belt, white belt?
Saruman is the chief,
Head of the order.
head of the order, and then they're all the rest of them are just doing their thing. Radagast is like devoted to nature,
Yeah.
which is very nice of
And
him.
they're just not in. The rest of them are just not in this movie.
Radagast is in
Or
the
they're like-
Hobbit. The rest
or in
are
these
not
the
in
trilogy.
movie.
Okay.
Right.
Not in this trilogy. The blue ones are never mentioned in the movies at
No,
all.
we literally know nothing about them besides Gandalf says there's also, or Tolkien says there's also 2 blue wizards.
He
That's
also,
all we
like,
know.
Tolkien, I read a little bit, like, Tolkien was kind of asked, like, oh, can the Maiar die if they choose to, and then are they reborn, and how does that work? And he was like, I don't know. Like, he just never, like,
There's a
completed
lot of
that side of the
one
lore.
of his big writing, like, motives, I guess, is mystery. Like the Balrog, we see it in this movie. It's never really described besides shadow and flame.
Yeah.
So, because
Flame of
mystery,
Odin.
mystery is better than description sometimes. Anyways, Nick, what are your questions? Let's go. Or any more?
Or do you have comments? Like, what? Okay. We watched a 3.5-hour film that you had barely seen. What were your thoughts? You mentioned being bored the last time you watched it. I asked you if you were bored halfway through. You said no.
So, you giving me the ability to pause the movie or ask questions was so valuable. Because the first time I watched it, it was just like, okay, this is on, and I have to try to figure it out. And then I just lost interest because I was lost
Yeah.
almost immediately. Like after they left the Shire, I was like, I don't know what's happening.
They start and they throw you into the Second Age, and
Yeah.
Galadriel's doing a VO and all kinds of cool stuff.
Great part.
Yeah, one of the biggest questions I had, and I just lost it.
Very
Welcome
cool.
to the club.
Very organized.
We'll get there.
So I even have a section.
We're a great show. Professional podcast.
We've only been doing it for 16 months.
Has it been that long?
Yeah.
Wow. Congrats, guys. Long time, first time here, by the way.
What
17
kind
months,
of
strictly.
kind of bringing it back to the beginning of the movie, we learned that Gollum had the ring for
A long time.
Several
Centuries.
centuries.
Yeah. How I feel like they didn't really explain how he lost it.
Don't answer that.
No,
Okay,
nobody
moving
Oh,
will.
on.
We can't answer that because
This-
one of the later films
Yeah.
explores
Okay.
that.
Yep. Don't worry.
Sorry.
But not The Hobbit.
No.
No.
The Hobbit
Okay.
also kind of yields to it, but the third one gives you
That
the
was
answer.
surprising to me. I thought we were going to see more Gollum
Carl?
My camera just went out.
Yeah, no kidding.
in this.
Let's act like nothing happened. Professional
Deal.
podcast.
Except we all pause. Yeah, I thought we were going to see more Gollum.
We do. So much more Gollum. Gollum is hinted at.
Yeah,
in this
don't worry.
movie,
It's coming.
But it's coming.
He's there. Yep.
It's coming for sure.
Yep.
I had
Let's
a
see.
question about the ring
Okay.
because they mentioned that it has a will. It wants to be found.
Yes. Crazy.
Is it doing that just by manipulating the people that are around it, or does it actually is that the way it moves and does things, or does it have another kind of
Well,
way to
it's
do
Sauron's
things?
essence. Yeah. So like it, and because Sauron isn't strong enough yet to take physical form, he has to do things in other ways, like the eye.
Like
which
Voldemort
isn't-
in the first
The eye
movie.
isn't in the books. I don't think, strictly speaking. As
Oh, yeah,
as
you
a
might be
red
right.
eye,
I don't
it's
remember that
not in the
exactly.
books. But
Just
yeah,
good description.
The way I understand it, it's like, yeah, it manipulates people into getting its will, I guess.
Okay.
Like eventually Gollum would have taken it somewhere.
I mean, it says
you know.
that it abandoned Gollum.
It does,
and,
yeah.
and,
It's so crazy.
and it goes
So it's kind
to
of like a
Bilbo.
parasite.
Yeah, that's kind of an
It like
interesting
takes
way to
over like
put
the
it.
host and
Yeah, and it has limitations. Like Sauron doesn't know exactly where it is, but when Frodo puts it on and enters that like shadowy realm, which is called something,
Shadowy Realm is exactly
then the eye, like there's literally you can hear Sauron whisper at one point, "I see you," like when Frodo puts it on. And
But it's only when
I've
it's
been
being
calling
worn.
it the windy gray.
yeah, like
good.
and-
It's poetic.
That's when it's being worn, and you see the spectral forms of the Nine, the Witch King of Angmar when he stabs.
And you're like
him with the
untouchable when you're in that space.
You're
Or is it
invisible.
like
Well, you're not untouchable too.
because he gets stabbed, so you're touchable. But
Okay.
it's
Well, and in the Hobbit,
I guess I don't
It's
know.
like being in a
actually.
different
you get
realm.
stabbed by you got stabbed by the kings.
in the Hobbit film, when Bilbo is invisible and he's escaping the whatever that underground area is, he literally jumps on Gollum's
yeah,
head
you're right.
and bounces off. So you are still there. You're just invisible. You're not like ethereal. Like you can't pass through people.
Okay.
Yeah.
You are. It's just an invisibility cloak.
Because he still
Okay.
runs around even at
Gotcha.
the end of this movie. Yeah. Good question.
And then those guys, they couldn't
Nine?
cross water. Why?
They
Okay, that's a good question. So,
On the horse.
Arwen, who actually in the book is a different character, but
Totally
Arwen,
different character.
but it was
that's a
not
good
bad.
brevity cut. 'cause,
Yeah. So Arwen kind of she was finally in her land, the land of Rivendell. So she kind of put a little spell on the water to try to like if you want him, come and claim him. But then Gandalf knows where they are at that time because he's kind of escaped a little bit.
He's in
Actually,
Rivendell at that point.
Is he? Okay. So either way, Gandalf knows where they are. And in the books, in the books, he doesn't say this in the movie. In the books, he says, I helped with the horses. Like he cast a spell to help the horse water to wash away the 9 kings. Which is a great part. There's so many good things, man.
Is there?
It reminds me of the Lion, the Witch, or Prince Caspian. One of the Narnia movies,
Okay.
like Aslan takes a water form and does a similar thing. I think.
Oh, sure.
Oh yeah, it's like the second one.
Second one, I think Caspian. Then.
It's Prince Caspian.
Yeah.
Nice.
Is there any correlation between there being 9 people in the Fellowship and 9?
Oh, so interesting. I'm sure there is. Tolkien did everything on purpose.
I was so proud of myself for
9.
immediately recognizing that, and they said
Yeah.
nothing about it.
It's
I never thought
Isn't
about
it 9, 7, 3, 9 men, 7 dwarves, 3 elves, 1 ring,
One ring, true
and
them
then
all.
we have a Fellowship of the 9. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know that. I would assume yes, but I don't know.
That feels good.
Great
I made
job,
Josh
Nick.
say I don't know on this episode.
I don't know a lot of things.
What a win.
Tolkien's so deep. Oh, we'll call Stephen Colbert up on the phone.
Yeah. Hey, Steve. That's so interesting, huh?
Here's something that blew my mind was that Merry and Pippin aren't brothers.
I assumed so.
I never knew that this whole time, and then
Nope.
Cameron said that, and I was like, what?
that
they
that
have-
was a question
they
I
have
asked
different
while we
last
were
names.
watching.
I don't know their last names. I just know
Mary,
they're
Doc,
annoying.
Brandy, Buck, and
Peregrine
Peregrine
Took.
Yep.
I asked
Couple
that
of
while we were
nerds.
watching. I was like, they're going to make so much fun of me for asking this because obviously they're brothers. I was like, are they brothers? No.
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 Frodo Baggins. Yeah. No, they're-
I mean, they have the same haircut.
Freaking the worst.
well, yeah.
And
So-
the same foot haircut as well. But nice one.
Dude, hobbits have gross feet.
Yeah.
But they have the best
disgusting.
life of all. I would let my feet be gross.
Yeah, when
Yeah.
when people ask the question like, "What movie universe would you want to be in?" The
I asked
correct
that.
objective answer is
It's
to
the
be a
Shire.
hobbit in the Shire.
Yeah, absolutely. That'll be heaven, and I firmly land on that
Yeah,
theological
100%.
point. Not,
You get 2 breakfasts every day.
yeah.
We've had one, yes.
What a moment, man.
One
At
of
that
my
moment, I was in love.
one of my first notes was the problem is I'm Merry and Pippin. Just a klutz. You're always messing
Pippin.
things up. Always wanting to eat.
Oh boy.
Because we were making fun of them. I was like, but the problem is this is me.
Pippin's my favorite character.
I
And
don't
want-
know the difference.
I
Like,
want to
don't know who's who.
explore. I want to explore over the next 3 weeks his path and development.
He does have a
and
really
then
good
there'll be
development.
there'll be some book moments in the third movie we need to discuss.
Perfect.
The third one maybe will need to be 2.5 hours.
That's fine. For
Yeah,
real.
because
Pippin's
I rolled my eyes at
absolute
them a
favorite
lot
character.
this movie.
No, you
but at the end, I was like,
course.
all right, finally. I forget what they did. It was
They-
something that
it's-
last battle.
So it's when Frodo.
They have a
has-
lot of
Oh, he
important things.
it's
threw
when
the.
Frodo has decided like
They do good.
I'm leaving.
Yep.
And Merry and Pippin run out and go, "We're hobbits," and they distract the Uruk-hai
Yep.
so that
Yeah.
Frodo can slip
They
away.
voluntarily get
And I was
captured,
like,
probably thinking they're gonna die.
they've
Yep.
grown, yeah.
Yeah, and then Boromir. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, no, Pippin's my favorite character
Of all of them.
of all of
Wow.
them.
Wow.
Of all of them,
That's
Pippin's my
wild.
favorite
I'm
character.
a Legolas guy. Carl, who's your
Oh,
favorite?
God.
Do you have a favorite? You and Nick are both
yet. I want to let it
semi-fresh.
sit on me for a little longer.
What about
but
Danielle?
Aragorn's,
You've seen him a couple
Aragorn's a standout.
Yeah.
I have to sit with it. I don't know.
Okay.
I
I will
mean,
say Pippin has one of my like. There's a lot of frustrating moments in these movies
Sure.
when he knocks that skeleton down the well.
course.
That is up
Oh,
there
yeah.
for one of my least favorite moments
You know,
in the movie
Throw yourself
series.
on there next time and spare us of your
You know the
Why wouldn't they have gone over there and said, "This is precariously perched upon this. Let's push it forward so it doesn't accidentally fall."
you know in
All
the
right,
book.
that's
I
fair.
don't
In the
That's
book,
fair.
he just throws a pebble.
yeah,
down.
it's not as.
It's
intense.
not as fun.
Well, that's still
However,
stupid.
it's still dumb. But he's
Yeah.
already been throwing pebbles into the water with the Watcher, which is the only thing the tentacled thing is ever called.
Yep.
It's just the Watcher. That's all we know about any tentacled creatures in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
The Watcher.
it's like
Again, mystery is a
a
big
little
deal, man.
Lovecraftian horror in your Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Who comes out and like whenever they're trying to get into the mines and they're getting attacked by the creature in the water, and one of them comes out and like slices at them when it's just like one tentacle coming out of the water.
Boromir
It's-
gets
I was
the
like,
first one,
yeah,
I
you
think.
got him. And then like 30 other tentacles pop up. It's like, oh no.
I think it's Sam that slices the first.
Yeah.
It's
Sam,
one of the
Sam,
hobbits.
Sam hacks at it.
Yeah.
One of the, I think it's Boromir that really
Yep, Boromir does
cleaves
it
one
first.
off clean.
Sam, I mean, I'll call it. You guys can't call it, but I'll call it. Sam's my favorite so far.
It's a good answer.
It's a good answer for.
Well, I feel like I should give you the reason you're correct later.
Later, yeah.
in
But
2 episodes, we'll learn why.
Right
Nick
now, I'm
picked-
correct because he's
picked right.
just such a good friend.
Sam is great.
You have no idea.
That makes me so excited to watch the
No,
rest.
Sam is great.
I
Of
was
course
crying
you
last
are.
night just
there was
thinking
one.
about
There
it.
was one.
Yeah, I was like, why is she crying right now? This is a good
It's
moment.
Sam.
There was one line. It was one of the 2 or 3 times that Sam says, "Don't you leave him, Samwise Gamgee," or something to that effect.
He's quoting Gandalf, yeah.
And he's quoting Gandalf, and I don't mean to. And it's before the boat scene at the very, very end.
Sure.
Yeah.
But there's a moment when they're crossing.
In the cornfield, probably.
It was after that.
Okay.
It's I'm not sure.
trying to think
It's-
when the next part
It's a
was,
moment
but,
where they're. I think it's right after they've traveled down the Anduin and they're at where they're going to be in the Uruk-hai Khum, but I don't really remember.
Sure. What a great person.
Man, we are in for. There's a reason that I don't like. I watch Star Wars at the drop of a hat. I will watch Star Wars whenever. I will not do that with these movies because they are emotionally taxing films.
I found I watch them December and January is when I
Yeah.
kind of fall into that.
And
I
May.
actually wanted
'Cause they're a
to-
Christmas movie.
Well, I wanted to save these for the fall because
They
they're
depart-
fallish to me. But with
Oh,
them
sure.
hitting theaters in June, and I want to see all 3 in theaters. I've never seen these 3 in theaters,
Oh, that's right.
and they're. I
yes.
think it's June 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Saturday, Sunday, Monday. They're coming to theaters.
I don't know about that one.
I'm
man.
doing all 3. I will go by myself.
I'll probably go see at least because, baby. I'll go see one.
But
Yeah, maybe I'll pick my favorite and go to that
I
one.
wanted to get you in and seeing these before
Yeah.
that they hit theaters. So I will say that my of the character introductions, we were talking about a character introduction for pirates, and I think it was Jack Sparrow.
Yeah, Jack
Sparrow.
Sparrow.
Stepping off the mast onto the dock, and
Of course.
and you know,
Great
So good.
moment.
paying the dockmaster and then stealing his coin purse and
so
stuff.
wonderful.
And everyone's like, "That's the best character introduction." It's not my favorite. This movie has my favorite, and it's the Strider introduction in the Prancing Pony,
Yeah. Oh my
where
God.
he's just sitting in the back, and the innkeeper's like, they call him
Smoking his-
Strider, and he's just smoking his pipe. They don't know anything about him, and he looks so cool. And I love he's chill and relaxed, and smoking his pipe in the dark corner of a bar, which is how I like to picture myself at a bar, even though that could not be further from the truth. Because I'm actually at the bar going, can I have a Fernet Branca, please? But Miller Lite.
It's like gross.
One of my favorite moments, really, maybe my favorite part of the movie is that collection of scenes in the Prancing Pony when we get
Yeah.
introduced to Strider. But you cracked me up at several points in the movie. But most notably, once Pippin does the whole Frodo Baggins,
Yeah.
he's my second cousin, once removed on his mother's side. And then Frodo gets up and he's like, and tries to get him. Falls backwards, trips on a
yeah.
long shank leg, falls backwards. The ring pops out of his hand,
And then he goes,
slips on his finger, and Nick goes,
"Well, I didn't know it made you invisible. I didn't know
great.
what was going to happen when
Great.
it landed
I
on his
wish
face. It was
I
the
would
first
had
time he
been
had
here.
worn it.
Yeah, you're right.
It's the second time
But,
someone had gone
yeah.
invisible. Bilbo uses it at the party.
Oh,
that
true.
gets
Oh,
invisible.
true.
But
I'm glad you still had that moment.
that's a
It's
cool
okay.
moment.
It's
You
okay.
did the big gasp. I loved it. But the best part is, like, right as you gasped is when Aragorn, like, sits up.
Yeah.
Because he's like, what?
So he thought he was reacting to
I was
Nick?
Aragorn.
Yeah.
And then he gives Frodo the whole Mr. Underhill and takes him
Yeah.
up. I can avoid being seen if I want, but to disappear entirely, that is a rare gift.
Can I add a little bit to your love of Strider's moments in the
Please.
Prancing Pony? Okay, so it comes after they've already left. Gandalf, of course, is captured by Saruman. He kind of is tailing back through, trying to figure out where the hobbits are. He goes to the Prancing Pony and he talks to Barlaam Butterbur, which is
That's the innkeeper,
guy, the
yeah.
innkeeper, and he finds out that the hobbits left with Strider, which of course to Gandalf is like a phew kind of moment, like
They're going to Rivendell where they should be.
so it's about what Gandalf then says to the Prancing Pony, and this story won't be finished until we get to the third movie and are done and towards the end. So remind me in 2 weeks to talk about it. Gandalf says to the Prancing Pony people, he says to Barlaam Butterbear, he says, "May your beard be placed under an enchantment of surpassing excellence for 7 years," and then leaves. And I remember like screenshotting that. I was like, "This is the best line I've ever read in any piece of literature ever." Oh my gosh! I keep on saying I'm going to say that when I
Does he
leave a
say-
bar sometime.
he
but I
doesn't
just
in the
never do.
movie.
I was gonna say,
No, he
say
doesn't say in the movie. It should have been, man. Oh my
We've-
Yeah.
gosh.
we've kind of buried a couple timeline leads too, because like when Gandalf leaves the Shire the first time, like Bilbo bones out to Rivendell, gives Bag End and the ring, pardon me, to Frodo. Gandalf leaves to go to Minas Tirith to research the archives and try to figure out what he can about this ring of power. Which ring is it, etc. Because they're all assumedly accounted for, and now one has come up. He's gone for like
17 years.
17 years.
I think it's 17 years, isn't it?
And it seems like in the movie it's
overnight.
a day.
Yeah.
Very
He's
quick.
gone for 17 years. They are also at the Prancing Pony for a while. The hobbits are. And I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe that the innkeeper gives Sam Bill, the pony.
It's either him or another guy, but yeah, somewhere.
It was either him. Now, here's the thing that I wanted you to talk about. Is the removal of Tom Bombadil.
Oh yeah, so Tom
what?
Bombadil is a character in the books.
He's in the Hobbit as
Hobbits. Yeah, the Hobbits on their way before they get to the Prancing Pony and stuff. They are going through the forest in the Shire. It's a dangerous forest, and they encounter this guy named Tom Bombadil. Tom Bombadil
Is it Fanghorn
is
or
Fangorn. No, it's not Fangorn.
It's not Fangorn.
I forget what it's called. Mirkwood. I'm pretty
we go.
sure.
We go to Mirkwood
We'll fact
later.
check it. We'll fact check it later. Mirkwood, I'm pretty sure. Either way, they're in this forest, come upon this guy named Tom Bombadil. The ring has no power over him. Frodo gives him the ring and he touches it, puts it on, nothing happens. It doesn't. So that's why everyone's like, they should have kept him in the movie because he's this enigma. He's this character. You're like, who the heck? Why don't they just send him to go? Even at one point in the meeting, I think it suggested, let's just go get Tom Bombadil to do this. But he's much like the elves. It's not that it doesn't matter to him. It's just it's not his business.
his business is elsewhere?
And so that might be the best answer for the elves too. It's like, we can help, but limited. But anyway, so Tom Bombadil is a character who never gets addressed, but it's almost because we can't make him make sense.
Yeah.
And that's and so one of the things I heard recently on another podcast was Tom Bombadil is a character that Tolkien invented to tell his kids bedtime stories before he ever thought of Hobbits or Lord of the Rings. And so he inserted Tom Bombadil in the story as an Easter egg for his own children. Is what I think I heard recently on a podcast. I forget who said that, but I listened to like Nerd of the Rings and a few others, one with Merry and Pippin. Someone with credibility said that I listened to. So that's kind of the Rings of Power shows are going to try to put him in there. And I'm kind of like the same as why I didn't want them to, I thought they made the Balrog look awesome. I thought it would look great. Correct. Good job. But to describe Tom Bombadil in a show, I'm like, you've got to nail this or you got to keep some mystery.
He's
to
kind
it.
of unfilmable. Like he's so powerful, such an enigma.
Sounds like a role for Chris Pratt.
And he's
Oh boy.
I don't think it's wrong necessarily. Or Jack Black.
Jack Black would be a good Tom Bombadil.
Or give it to like Idris Elba and make him just be crazy.
I mean, we could always bring back Nick Cage.
No.
Oh man.
Yeah, Tom Bombadil's a weird enigma character.
yeah.
Like he's so powerful, and yet he's just kind of like, it's almost like the Hobbits almost feel like they're passing through Tom Bombadil's life and not vice versa.
Yeah, sure, because he's kind of this eternal is not the right word, but he's just beyond.
They're there
the place.
and they have a feast, and then they get like some like otherworldly rest while they're there. It's a very strange. His cabins.
It's a great chapter,
they
though.
get eaten by trees at one point,
Yeah.
and that is shown up in a later. I
It's in
think
Two
Frodo
Towers.
and Sam
Merry and Pippin get
consumed by the trees, but then in Two Towers they take that scene and apply it to
Yeah.
Merry and Pippin later. It's deleted and unnecessary, which is why I'm okay with semi-spoiling it.
Yeah.
But,
Anyway, that's the answer. Tom Bombadil's a great character, and I think it's an Easter egg for Tolkien's kids, which makes it even better.
he's super. He's super funny.
IMHO.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Speaking of deleted scenes, so when I think of the extended editions of this movie, I more think of, I'm going to be as vague as possible, but things like the cave trolls that show up in this movie, like when Frodo's post-stabbed by the Morgul blade, it's right before Aragorn sends Sam off to look for the weed, and then Arwen shows up. They're like, look, Frodo,
Soil.
it's the cave trolls. And
Oh, yeah.
why remove that to save 15 seconds?
Oh, I've not
But-
watched the regular edition in so long.
Yeah, that's not in there. And then other
Crazy,
things
yeah.
like, to be super vague, Nick, plug your ears, Mouth of Sauron,
Yeah.
the thing that happens at the top of the Isengard later with
Oh, yeah.
with Grima and blah blah blah.
We'll talk about
Like,
that.
These big major set pieces that like I'm like, why did they remove that?
Yeah.
And then in this movie, it's not as much that. It's more of certain sets of dialogue last twice as long. And they do that over and over and over. Like there were so many scenes where I'm like, they removed this, they removed this, they removed this. Like Galadriel's gifts in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
She gives, I actually wrote them down. She gives the Lembas, the elven cloaks and brooches. She gives an elven rope for Sam. She gives the Galadriel bow for Legolas. Boats for
3
the
hairs.
Anduin, although that's not in the movie, and then the file of Galadriel for Frodo.
Right.
In the theatrical release, only the file of Galadriel is shown. She gives him that star of whatever, and the rest of the gifts are not in there. So,
Yeah.
and that's a huge amount of, and then also the line that Galadriel has, he has fallen into shadow, when her dude piece is like, "Where's freaking Gandalf?"
Yeah.
That conversation is 2 sentences in the theatrical release, and it's 2 minutes in this movie. So it's a lot of. Also, at the beginning of Fellowship, post the Second Age flashback, there's the whole Bilbo's writing the book, and there's some Bilbo VO, like voiceover. None of that is in the theatrical
Gotcha.
release.
So interesting.
None of it
I
at
haven't
all.
watched it in so
We go
long.
right from the Second Age flashback to the no visitors except on party business sign, and then the cart. It's "You're late. A wizard is never late." Blah blah blah. Like there's 5-10 minutes.
Yeah, it's because they
Of
probably just were
disposition
like, we got to
removed.
make it
Well,
more.
They make Boromir, like, there's a lot of dialogue that really kind of gives
Yes.
him backstory into why why Frodo doesn't trust him.
During the
why there's like dialogue during the meeting.
the Council of
cut out.
Elrond.
Yeah, about him wanting to take the ring to Gondor. You miss a lot of his like negative intentions when they cut that out. So watching this version, which I think this is the first time I've ever seen,
We did
The
not watch
extended
the
edition of
extended
this
edition
movie?
of Fellowship last time.
all of the storyline around Boromir made a lot more sense.
Yeah, like for example, during the Council of Elrond, Boromir in the theatrical release is really only like, it's a gift. This is a gift, and then he gets shouted down, and then there's a abbreviated version of the beef between.
That's the longest chapter in the books.
Oh my gosh, I'm still not through it.
It's long.
I've been trying to read it. There's a little abbreviated version of the beef between Boromir and Aragorn when Legolas steps up and goes, "Do you know who you're talking to?" And the answer is not really. And also, like the Shards of Narsil scene is slightly longer in this version. So I have only seen the extended edition I mentioned earlier one other time of this film in particular, and I was like bathing in it. I'm like, this is the best, man. Like, I want all that extra stuff.
Cameron smiled 90% of the movie. It was
I
great.
love it. I was in
I
heaven.
can see it.
I was in
can
heaven.
see it now.
It's just like my love for Lord of the Rings is so much different than my love for Star Wars. It's
a good way to put it, yeah.
Star Wars, like, I know a lot about Star Wars. I don't know everything. There are people commenting on our TikTok that we posted earlier this week that I'm like, yeah, I didn't think of that, or true, blah, blah, blah. But Lord of the Rings, it's like, I love it so much and I know nothing.
There's so much because it's
I
the
know
deepest
nothing.
world of any creation. Like, man,
Like when you are hearing people speak Elvish, like Arwen and Aragorn, there are alphabets. It is a full language that you can
Tolkien
learn.
created the language because he was he like was a language professor at Oxford. He created Elvish and then was like, oh, let's make a book.
Yeah, so there
Let's make a book.
those actresses like Liv Tyler can
Okay,
speak to you.
Speaking of Stephen Colbert, you need to go watch after you see all 3 movies.
Yeah.
Go watch Stephen Colbert's rap he did with all the actors, and Hugo Weaving, who plays Elrond, raps in Elvish, and you're just like,
That's
he's
amazing.
rapping in Elvish right now. It's like
That's wild, man.
it's a legitimate language they know. It's so much deeper. Like
It's
compare that to George Lucas just making shit up and writing himself into corners. Yeah, like
That's the language.
you know what I mean? Like with George, he won't leave it well and good alone. And then with Tolkien, like I mean, to the point where tragically, towards the end of Tolkien's life, he hallucinated that it was real. Like he lost,
I didn't know that.
He,
That's
he
crazy.
kind of lost his mind in his later years and could not distinguish reality from the worlds he built. And he had inconsistencies as well. I mean, Christopher Tolkien had hell trying to make all these maps make sense because Tolkien would just
gosh.
draw maps and they wouldn't all align. So Christopher Tolkien, his son, had to just kind of be like,
what
kinda, and make them work.
Christopher, we owe a lot to Christopher Tolkien. The Silmarillion came out posthumously.
Yep.
Christopher Tolkien's the one that made it. So anyway,
I have a couple quotes written down that I really
I can't wait.
enjoyed from the movie.
Oh, good.
And
It's so quotable.
I wrote this down, and it seems kind of silly rereading my notes, but I said I really like Tolkien's writing style. That's funny because I've never read any of the books or anything he's ever done, but the dialogue in this movie, like, it stood out to me in ways that other movies haven't.
I'm trying to think of an example. Keep going, though. I had a line where I was like, we in spoken English would say it this way, and yet he says it like this.
I remember you saying that. I forget which one that was. But even, so I wrote down, like,
I got it really quick. So when when they're in Moria, and Frodo notices that Gollum is climbing the walls, and he goes, "We're being followed," and Gandalf's like, "He's been following us for 3 days," and it's the creature Gollum. His name was Smeagol in a former life, which that was cut out of the theatrical release too, and Frodo asks, so he was he escaped from Mordor, and what we would say in English as Gandalf is escaped or set free, but what Tolkien wrote is escaped or set loose.
Oh, yeah,
and that is
words.
just, that little change to me is like, that is just grammar. Like it's incredible. He has a vocabulary that is just so much beyond our LOLs and LMAOs and our Jeff Davis makes this point in Harmontown, Carl, that we are just murdering the English language these days, and it's super cool the way that. Now I also find
the most recent victim.
I also find Tolkien's writing incredibly frustrating at times.
We can talk about. I want to hear Nick's quote.
But
Go on. So I got a couple I grouped together here. One is just 11-1 instead of 111. That was great. But like some of the more like pull on your heart ones was Frodo talking to Bilbo. And Frodo says, "I miss the Shire. I spent all my life pretending I was somewhere else. Off with you on one of your adventures, but my own adventure turned out to be quite different. I'm not like you, Bilbo." And that, I looked at Danielle, I was like, oh. Like that, I've wanted this my whole life, and now I just want to go home. And like, I feel like that helped bring so much depth to the characters, the way that those the dialogue in those scenes played out. But the one that stands out to me most was when they get the council together and they're figuring out the plan to get the fellowship together. And they're like, all right, this is the ring. This is where it came from. You can't destroy it. You have to throw it in the fire. And I'm sitting on the couch like a moron going, well, just go do it. Like, just go do it. Go. It's a tiny little ring. Just take it, throw it in the fire. Why has it been around for so many centuries? Just go do it. And right at that moment, I was thinking that you get the, one does not simply walk into Mordor. And I was like, oh my God, that was for me. Like, he knew writing this is how it's being perceived, and I have to respond to that. Like, in that moment, I was like, oh my God, I'm like a part of this movie now. It was crazy.
I love it. I love it so much.
It's funny to me that you bring up the my own adventure turned out quite different, because to you that moment means something so different to you than it means to us.
That's awesome.
Who have seen it before, because you're going, aw, and we're going, he doesn't even know what he is getting into.
Simply walk there.
He's already saying this, and he's done effectively nothing but get stabbed by the Witch King of Angmar. Like, oh my gosh.
And then just everything Sam ever says just gets me.
I'll have you, Longshanks.
I love, man. Sam's great.
Sam's the best.
He is.
I'm excited for, not to talk about the ending here, but you see that Frodo and Sam are going off by themselves into the second movie. I hope, I won't look at your faces, I hope that they stay together, just the two of them, for a good bit, because I like the two of them together.
Yeah, no comment.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens.
Any other thoughts, questions that you have written down? We're in a good rhythm with Nick time.
With Nick time. I just have some random notes I'll go through here, called Things I Loved. The first one is, there's always hope. Like, everything is always, the whole movie is through this optimistic, hopeful lens, and I really appreciate that, especially with...
Yeah, despite how bleak everything kind of is.
And also, it turns into, and you'll get more of this, but it was mentioned in the Council of Elrond that it's kind of the least of these kind of story. Like, the hobbits are the most unassuming race. You know, we have the world. Boromir even says in anguish, the age of men is over.
Well, and when Saruman says, surely did you not think that a hobbit could contend with the power of the Dark Lord.
Yeah, like
Something
the elves are boning out. They're all going to the west. The dwarves, their
Freaking
kingdoms
rude
are
elves.
diminished. I mean, Moria's in ruin. Balin's dead. Durin's dead. Like they're
Yeah.
all, and you know it seems
My
that like
cousin.
men are going to take over, and yet the Hobbit has the most.
Who no one really even knows about. Like,
No,
they have to
Yeah.
tell people later, like, only a child to your eyes.
Gandalf is a weirdo for befriending hobbits. Like nobody does. The hobbits don't leave the Shire. Like
They
there's
keep to themselves.
there's a lot of dialogue about that in the books when they're going to Bree. Like they meet other people and they're like, "What the heck are hobbits doing out here?" And it's a whole thing.
Yep.
There's a lot of racial tension in Lord of the Rings between. I mean, we get the elf and dwarf.
Well, that's why.
battling.
So to go back to your gifts of Galadriel, when Galadriel she gives Gimli, like Legolas is like talking to her in the boat, and he says, "I asked her for one hair from her golden head. She gave me 3."
Yeah.
But then, historically, with the elves, there was a man or another elf who asked one of the more ancient elf like women for 3 of her hairs. And I forget what exactly happened, but she said no, and I think he dies. And so
wow.
for her to give a dwarf who humbly asks, after he had just insulted them like recently before, 3 of her hairs is like Tolkien's poetic justice almost to that. It's like to that guy in the past, you sucked
Yeah.
so bad. We're giving a dwarf one of these. So anyway,
I do like the
there's a lot of dwarf and elf. Yeah.
Speaking of the insults, like
Redemption.
Gimli, like we go right from Gandalf falling to the Bane of Durin, the Balrog, and the whole they get out of Moria and they're all grieving, and Aragorn's like, Legolas, get them up, like we gotta go right now. They get to they adventure to Lothlorien, which is where Galadriel and them are. That's like that elf section is called Lothlorien. They get to Lothlorien and. They've all heard about this elf witch, which is Galadriel, and her gaze and whatever. And we know that's true because she's in all their heads. Mm-hmm. That's why Aragorn does this as soon as they get there. He hides his eyes. But Gimli's like, there's one dwarf she's not going to get. I got the whatever and the
Ears of a fox and the
then-
eyes of a hawk.
Yeah, and then right into friggin' bows. I love that little bit of humor right after we've just taken a gut punch.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and it's really good storytelling.
Yep.
Peter Jackson deserves a lot of credit there.
Lord of the Rings has those little moments of humor that amidst this very bleak but hopeful feeling.
Even in Moria, when after Pippin's dumped the skeleton down a well and there's all that noise and the horde are coming, and Aragorn and Boromir go to shut the doors, and you hear that roar that when you've seen the movies and played the video games, you know exactly what that roar is. But Boromir clues us in humorously. He goes, they have a cave troll, and that's I like Boromir. Boromir's one of the more conflicting characters in this film. There are others. I mean, Faramir, for example, plays that role, and Theoden and others. There are many conflicted characters, but Boromir's like, man, he's got a lot of good lines, and you want to identify with him on some levels, and on other levels you're like, I friggin' hate this guy, and then also he's played by Sean Bean, who dies in everything, so you're like, this guy's dead. Like,
Poor Scene Bean.
Scene Bean.
That's how I've always pronounced it.
So
I like to call him
Sean
Sean
Bond.
Bond.
Yeah, it's either one of the two.
Sean
I'm with you.
Can we talk about the CGI?
yeah,
And how great it was and how
it's so good.
land breaking.
Oh, yeah.
I think I said this on Gladiator. I think early 2000s were peak CGI. Obviously, there's exceptions because Phantom Menace is a movie.
Phantom Menace
But-
is hard.
It was fantastic.
I think that's a good comparison because Phantom Menace is like 95% CGI, especially with
Sure,
Jar
yeah.
Jar.
This
Your
is
characters,
limited.
your world, everything is CGI. What I think they did really well in Lord of the Rings is CGI enhances the real world and their actual sets.
When you watch
It's not 100%.
when you watch behind the scenes stuff, like there are dudes that went crazy intense because all they were doing was putting plastic rings together to make the chainmail for 3 years.
It's not the Weta workshop. It's for real. Watch
Weta
the behind the
is-
scene. Go buy the extended DVDs tonight and watch the behind the scenes.
Yeah, like
Cameron's got 'em.
Weta is to Lord of the Rings what ILM is to Star Wars. Now I think ILM is arguably more revolutionary. Like we have Photoshop because of ILM.
George Lucas was that was all. But yeah, Weta is
Carl, we have
nuts,
jobs because of George Lucas.
Yeah, like no joke.
Basically.
Photoshop was created by an
And
industrialized
me.
Danielle.
Thanks.
man. Me too. No.
This feels harsh to say, and this is incorrect and a huge generalization that Weta is to practical effects what ILM was to digital, because a lot of what ILM did was practical, especially in the first three Star Wars films. But like the ILM or Weta, yeah, like the stuff they do is incredible. The fact that like when you look at the different races, like the swords even are so different. Like the humans have swords like you and I would have. Like you think knights in shining armor, and the orc swords are squarish and they look blunt, like they're cast iron. And elves have curved scimitars to like bolster their grace, and dwarfs all have crazy axes that just look like rocks and like what dwarves would have, and it's effortless.
They're sturdy.
You look at a piece of armor on an elf and you go, yep, that's what they would wear, and you don't question it. You buy it immediately, and that's a testament to Weta Workshop's prowess for armor work and making it
And
feel
then the
like
artists
real.
they brought in like some of their favorite artists to show them what they did, and then they built it all based on the art. So it's great. Yeah. Plus Tolkien's descriptions.
Yeah.
Carl,
I've got a question.
you're new too, and you haven't asked a lot of questions.
Saruman. Nobody was suspicious.
Just by their names.
It is a little on the nose, isn't it?
They're in the same name club. Of course they'd be on the same side.
As soon as I heard their names, I was like, well, this guy's bad, obviously. Like, you don't, and you can't
This guy
talk like
uses an
that. The
Android.
voice he has, yeah.
I mean, just
I just
look
have
at
always
him.
been so confused by like why that wasn't like a dead giveaway. Like seems pretty sus. But like, I don't know. A lot of my notes were just kind of like actually sitting down and like watching this and like being like, okay, and like I was really intimidated with the 4-hour movie time, and I didn't realize 30 minutes of that was just credits.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay. I was like, because I went to use the bathroom and I was like, all right, I'm gonna sit back down. We got 30 more minutes, and then like they went to the Martian, it was over. I was like, what? So I was like, oh man.
Same for me when I was a kid. Yeah.
I just like the weight of the ring in the very beginning. It's like when it hits something, it's like, dunk.
And when
Like
he
it gives you
catches it-
so much. Yeah, and like it does so much to like kind of clue you into the universe and like what's important just without even saying anything. And the camera work, I know I talked about it earlier, but like they just did such a good job of like showing you the urgency of a scene, the way you would pan, the way you would follow a character. Like even the stuff that they did like in the very beginning when which one's the big bad?
Sauron.
Sauron is like fighting the guys and like it does those like close-up shots to his ring.
Yep.
Like, that felt like a very contemporary kind of shot and almost felt like a video game cutscene. Not as a
I
knock,
agree.
but like that informed like how games would do that.
Because he has it, and it like goes to center frame, pulls back, and then goes back to center, and it's very
Yeah,
I
it does
get
a lot of
exactly what
really
you're saying.
and it does a lot of slow motion kind of stuff. But I don't know, I was just like really blown away with like how just technically like perfect this movie
And
was. Like,
timeless,
everything's
right,
like there was no like fluff really. I mean, the pacing felt good despite its long runtime.
I didn't
I don't
mean
know. I've got a ton of like random notes. So.
I told
love
Nick
it.
last night, like, I feel like I'm overhyping these movies by saying
Yeah,
this,
it's hard to-
But
yeah.
Lord of the Rings to me is right there with The Godfather Part 1 and 2 as far as feats of storytelling, cinematography. Like, it's
world.
Godfather and Lord of the Rings are neck and neck for me.
Yeah. The other big thing that I was taking was the sound design. Like, what is this Foley when they add the sounds
Foley.
afterwards? Foley.
Yeah, Foley.
Like this, like at the very beginning, like when Gandalf is kind of rummaging through Bilbo's house, and he's like, and you get all like the paper rustling sounds. I was like, it was like it was like hyper realist audio.
It sounds
was
like
way more.
parchment, not paper.
It's like
Like,
yeah, it was like ASMR fantasy or something. It was like, but the whole movie's like that. It's just like, God, it just sounds so good. It looks
Yeah.
good. It's like everything about it just feels. I was dialed in. Like as soon as I started, I was in, and I was like, I don't know why, like. Because I've never really given these movies a chance before, and I was like, "What have I been missing out on?"
And the
So I don't know.
soundtrack,
Maybe.
too.
Oh yeah, it's just so good.
There was no point in this movie where I was like, oh yeah, this is 23 years old. Like it felt like a new movie.
Yeah.
The only thing that kind of gave it away was, and we haven't talked about them, the things that are kind of like born from the ground.
Okay, the Uruk-hai.
The Uruk-hai?
Yes, those looked a little rough.
Do you
Like,
understand
could
the
see those
Uruk-hai?
rage. Not really.
So the orcs,
I mean-
Orcs?
the orcs,
Uruk-hai are the same thing?
They are an improved version of orc. So they're like the orcs are all like cursed, gross,
They
manipulated
basically,
elves.
if I remember right, they bred orcs with, like, I think it was
Men?
elves.
Or elves?
Elves, like, way back in the day. And I forget, I can't explain the coming out of the ground scenario. Like, there's wombs in the earth, but it's like a beehive.
Yeah.
Wombs.
It's
It's
just
crazy.
It's
It's
gross.
It's gross,
They do.
but it's meant to be disgusting, and they immediately can fully speak and
There's
talk and know what
two
menus are
differences.
immediately.
There's two huge differences, one of which is super important that delineates the Uruk-hai from the orcs. Their size and stature, which is whatever,
Oh,
that's
yeah, and I know-
obvious. You
yeah.
can just look at them. Orcs will not go out in the daylight, and the Uruk-hai will.
Oh,
So that's their big advantage.
So that's why we see a lot of orcs underground.
Which will
and
make
in
sense more
caves.
next movie.
And it will make sense more in the next movie. But the Uruk-hai are like, we do not care about the sun at all. And they are just running around in the broad daylight. And we'll see that literally at the beginning of the next movie.
It's great.
So that's cool.
This
I
movie
really,
makes me want to smoke a pipe.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's
used to
the
do that.
only reason I have a pipe, which I haven't used in probably 7-8
Mine's
years.
right there.
do you
Yeah,
blow
is because I have a
smoke
pipe.
rings in the shape of a
I've-
ship?
I haven't. I never could do that.
so cool.
My friends could do a ship though, but I couldn't. But that's the
Just
only reason I
fat
have a pipe
ships,
is because
dude.
of Lord of the Rings.
Blowing
Yeah.
fat ships.
Okay, so I did get. I went to a place in Missouri that sells like the pipe tobacco, and they have a 6-pack of all Lord of the Rings themed pipes, including a shortcut to mushrooms, which is the chapter title of the book. When the hobbits, when Frodo and Sam meet Merry and Pippin, they fall, and they're like, "A shortcut to what? Mushrooms!" And then Frodo's like, "Get off the road." Anyway,
Yep. I like how the get off the
Great
road
time.
scene when they hide under the
my
the
God.
tree roots. It's like almost exactly the same as the animated Lord of the
so
Rings from the
that's
70s.
it is, and that's another part that scene right there. Speaking of your sound comment, that's the scene that the sound to me gets the most pronounced because you can hear the sniffing. Because like
Yep.
the Nazgul is sniffing, and then you see all the bugs crawling all over him. You just feel that scene more than any other scene I've ever watched in a
Yep.
movie. Because you're like, yeah, this is incredibly uncomfortable. I don't want someone scary sniffing for me. It's crazy.
He's a sniffer.
Yeah.
What you got?
Well, I just get annoyed because I'm like, I feel like that he would still sniff. Like, I
Smell
know
them.
the
Yeah.
ring's not on,
But
but it's
he is real
right
close.
there.
But you see that he starts sniffing, and then
Well-
it cuts to Frodo, and he's got the ring nearly on his finger like this, and then pulls it away, and that's
They
when
throw the mushrooms
that's when
away.
he throws the mushrooms away, and the dude goes and then bones out.
Okay.
They're very-
I'm just
They tricked
saying.
him.
It's,
He can
They're very
smell,
jumpy.
He can
Yeah.
smell the ring as he gets closer and closer to Frodo actually going shoom.
And what you got to remember too is
Okay.
that
No.
Tolkien
That's
has a good
interesting.
explanation for nearly everything that we would question, and the movies don't always explain it as well as
Including,
himself would.
he also
Including-
had an explanation for why don't the Eagles blank
Yeah,
blank
that's-
blank, which I will not spoil.
Yeah,
that's a question
that's
that
not-
you both may have later, and it has an explanation.
Yeah, and it's
I know
yeah.
enough
That's
to know
interesting.
that one. I've got a couple other annoying things.
Please,
Oh,
please.
Yeah.
Nick?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Well, so I thought it was ridiculous, Merry and Pippin throwing rocks and then being like bonk and like falling over. That felt very Ewok trooper.
Where at?
Which
Where
part?
at?
And like the final scene when they're like throwing rocks at the dudes and they're like falling over like they're getting hit with
Yeah,
Oh,
so
yeah,
they were
yeah.
throwing
Bullets.
rocks at the Uruk-hai.
I thought that was kind of ridiculous. And then the only other thing that I was like, what? Was when Frodo gets stabbed and then he's like, I'm okay, I'm not hurt. But then, which is like, fine, the armor.
The
But
mithril
they-
shirt when he gets
But
stabbed
they
by the
do
troll.
That
so
got
many
me.
cuts to him being like, oh. And then they pan to everyone else being like, no. Oh. And then it pans back to him and he's like, oh. And he's like, I'm okay. I was like, why did you do that to us? Like, why? Like, why would he react that way if he's
I
fine?
think I would
So was
imagine
it like a mental damage
You
or
mean
something?
more?
Like,
and
what
you mean in
happened
the
there?
minds of Moria?
In the Minds of Moria,
Okay,
when
so
he-
I think
Yeah,
it's
like
I think
they-
it's that he still got hit really hard. Imagine a
So he felt
linebacker.
the
imagine
bludgeon, but not the pierce.
Right.
Yeah, imagine a
Okay.
linebacker hitting you with a like a bee stinger on his
Okay.
helmet, and that doesn't go in you somehow.
I think
but
it
you
was
still
just
get
the
hit.
fact that he reacted so big and then was just like, I'm not hurt. It'd be like, just be like, I'm fine. Don't be like, I'm not hurt. You were clearly
Oh.
hurt 2 seconds ago. Like,
Speaking of the mithril shirt, I loved the scene that's not in the theatrical cut when they're walking up. They're in Moria and they're just like kind of traveling along, and Frodo's in the back of the group, and
Oh, yeah.
Gandalf has a chat with I don't
Gimli,
remember
I think.
who. I think it's Gimli, and he goes, Bilbo had a Mithril shirt once because he says that this was a Mithril mine. Bilbo had a Mithril shirt, and I never had the heart to tell him that his shirt is worth more than all of the Shire. And then Frodo's just chilling, wearing
he
it.
has
Nobody
it on,
knows. I want to mention really quick that how much I like the names of everything in Lord of the Rings. I've tried to write my own things,
reminds me of something.
and names are really difficult because you sit and try to make
impossible.
something up, and I just feel like I'm ripping off.
You
Tolkien.
end up with like Nick or something or Cameron.
Yeah, but I have
Sam.
I have a sentence that I wrote in this outline that says the Gandalf's Fellowship leave Lothlorien and head for Parth Galen by way of the Anduin, and that's
great.
just
Great, man.
What?
and
I didn't understand a
know
word you
what
just
all
said.
that means, and it's so cool that like just all and how likened characters are named similarly, like Eowyn and Theoden and whatever the freaking
Éomer.
Éomer and
And
Arwen
Phaedron.
and Judas River, who's the headmaster of
The headmaster. You mean Elrond?
Elrond. Thank you, Elrond and Arwen. They're close. Like elfish names sound similar, and the family names and Rohan sound
Well, and
similar, and
You might hear too, like
Boromir and Faramir and whatever their dad's name,
Denethor.
Denethor. He kind of that dude. Wow.
just get ready for the. But yeah, or even you might hear. So Gandalf has so many names as well. You might hear someone call him Mithrandir, and that's his Elvish name. And so everyone has different names. Like Aragorn's called Strider. There's
Not
It's
confusing.
kind of like
at
how
all.
it's kind of like
Yeah,
how
I
in
know, right?
Dune, like Paul has.
Right.
He's Muad'Dib and Paul. And,
yeah.
and
So
whatever.
anyway,
It's similar.
yeah. Eventually, you might hear Mithrandir, and that's Gandalf.
So, Carl, you have one
Names.
more
So,
thing.
well, for the names, at one point they referenced Misty Mountains.
Yes.
I can't remember if it was just a official name. That is a porn star name from the Nice Guys.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
I think it's just Misty Mountain. Yeah, it is Misty Mountains. You're
Yeah.
right. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a great movie, by the way.
So I feel like
we
that's
need
got
to
to be
watch
a
that.
reference.
is a good
and
movie.
then-
I wonder if it is.
It almost.
Ryan Gosling actually.
Yeah.
No, hold on. Ryan Gosling is on Stephen Colbert again, and he gives Stephen Colbert a pop quiz about Tolkien from his mom. So maybe Ryan Gosling was like, "Hey, let's name it this."
Which, by the way,
oh my gosh, that kind of ruins it.
Tolkien knew, or Colbert knows everything.
He
Like,
does.
that dude's
He does.
brain is huge.
There's a couple
And then-
bands that took.
Oh yes, I want to mention really quick. We need to wrap this up. By the
He
way.
had one more. I want to hear this last thing too.
We'll end with that because this is nonsense. So I had Nick keyed up at one point. I was telling him it's when right when Sam goes, if I take one more step, it's the furthest from home I will have been, or,
Yeah.
or whatever the line
I've
is.
ever been.
I butchered that. I said, Nick, get ready for an Under Oath song title. And Frodo tells him the Bilbo line, it's dangerous business walking out your door.
I didn't put that
That's
together.
an Under
Oh my
Oath
God.
song from...
Dangerous
way.
business walking out your
Good for
front door.
them.
That's from...
Great job, Under Oath.
Chasing safety.
Chasing Safety.
Do they watch the show? They watch this? We're gonna have to
Maybe.
call them up.
Hi, Tim.
What up,
No,
Aaron?
yeah, and there's one more.
Chris. Chris is the one who would watch.
Texas in July, which is a band that I love that's now back, although not touring. They have a song called "There's Talk of Strange Folk Abroad," which is
Oh,
what the
nice.
gatekeeper says when the hobbits.
Yep.
Which that's a great
After he
visual
opens
gag
the
when he
second door.
opens the human-sized slat and then has to go open the hobbit height one.
Hobbits, 4 hobbits.
What business is it?
R.I.P. that
Business is
guy.
around.
He
All
didn't
right.
he didn't deserve to be
Didn't
trampled
mean to
by.
offend.
Yeah.
Youngsters.
Now,
That guy's so nice. Poor guy. Man, he gets squished.
Carl, what's your last thing before we wrap?
Well, I guess one was that summon creature when he did the moth.
Did he say
Gandalf,
the
like,
moth?
grabbed-
Did he-
was that
What-
summon creature?
Did he use the Dungeons
Was that like
and Dragons
D&D
spell?
stuff, or is that like? Do those relate at all, or is it?
How did the moth find him? Because I know, so he whispers to the moth, and the moth is what gets the eagle that gets him out of there. But I'm not sure.
I think it was just a general moth.
think it-
I'll have to go look. I'll have to go reread the books tonight.
I think he just found a moth.
It's more that he's a wizard and can talk to moths.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
so.
he put a spell on it. It's not like he can speak moth, but the moth can speak
I
spell.
I don't know. There might be a moth language.
Maybe there is,
There might be.
and that's the link between that and the Star Wars Mon Mothma.
There you go.
The other thing,
We made it.
The other note was I got chills when he said, "You shall not pass."
Yep.
Because it was like fucking
Oh,
perfect.
gosh, man.
So I was like, "Oh man."
That's like the one line everyone knows from this movie. Didn't
Yeah.
know it was when he freaking dies.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was hard, man.
All right. Well, you got something?
Well,
Hot point.
I did
Ooh.
not do hot points because there's too much to pay attention to.
Lord of the
In
Rings.
this
It's kind of
movie,
beyond that.
There's
They're all
27,000
hot.
characters.
It's it's
Especially
beyond.
their feet.
But here's what I will say.
Wow.
Because we've had a lot of debate on this show of late about Legolas versus Will Turner.
Will Turner.
But
I thought you said legalists.
Legolas, you know what I mean. Will Turner aside, Aragorn is the hot one in this group.
He is.
100%.
Can I explain
Yes.
my affinity for Legolas really quickly?
I
like how cautious
suppose.
his
I
eyes
like.
are. He like looks
Aragorn,
out
but
and
you're
stuff.
correct.
Listen,
Aragorn.
Legolas is also like beautiful man. Love him too, but Aragorn. Just,
Let me
So
Just
let me
get ready
explain.
for the next movie.
Let me explain
Yeah.
my affinity for Legolas really quick. I mentioned at the top of the show that one of my first exposures to Lord of the Rings was the Return of the King hack and slash video game, which is near and dear to my heart.
It's a great game.
I played that at Steven's house when we were growing up.
Hey, Steven.
And he was always first controller. So he was always Aragorn, which means I got second controller and got to choose between Gimli and Legolas, and I chose Legolas because bows are awesome. And I love the short swords. I do. If I were to get a Lord of the Rings tattoo, it would probably be the Shards of Narsil. But second, I would want the crossed swords.
Legolas's fighting knives.
The fighting knives are just
We'll have those on the show next episode. I'll find them.
incredible. You've got to find those. I need them on the wall. But yes, we have been talking for so freaking long. Should
an hour and 9 minutes.
That's not too bad,
That's not
actually.
too bad.
Should we do the world's most useless hit, mid, or miss?
Yeah.
Every episode, we rank a movie, hit, mid, or miss. I feel like this is going to be a unanimous hit.
yeah.
This is a
Yeah.
pointless.
Well, I'll say this then.
Mid.
When we watched Dune, my letterbox review, follow me, was I don't know how a movie is going to top this year. And I found a movie that topped it, and it was
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings.
And by
Not only-
by this year, you mean a movie you've watched in the past
that I've
12
watched
months.
this year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're aware that these
This
movies are
calendar year.
25 years old.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, definitely my favorite movie so far this
Fellowship
year.
is your favorite movie so
yeah.
far. Okay.
So good.
For the people that have seen all three, where does Fellowship fall? For me, it's my favorite.
yeah.
And give no explanation why, because I don't want to
Don't
be
give any
spoiled.
explanation, but for me,
Yeah.
it's my favorite because of the Hobbiton scenes.
Yeah.
I just want to be there. I love the starts of every. I mean,
We've talked about it. We love the
We love the
beginnings. That's why I
beginnings.
love the first Harry Potter. Probably is my favorite Harry Potter.
I love the first
First
two Star
Star
Wars,
Wars,
of
yeah.
both trilogies, all two of them.
First Pirates of the Caribbean.
First Pirates
First
movie,
Pirates
for
is
sure.
great. It's
the
great,
first
yeah.
Dune. I prefer the first Dune. Film,
But
which
for
is
this
wrong.
for this I will say that the first Lord of the Rings is if I'm ranking them on a scale of 1 to 100, this one's like a 105 and the others are 104s. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so it's hard to
Which
but
is
this is my
interesting.
favorite one for sure. But because there's you have a depth of you're building up to stuff, and so you have a more rich. You have the Prancing Pony, you have Hobbiton, you have Rivendell. There's just more.
I looked
there's
on
different. So
I looked on the IMDb top 100, and 3 of these films break the top 10, and
They do.
One of them is in the top 12, and their rankings are actually in reverse chronological order. It's Return
Yeah.
of the King, Two Towers, Fellowship, and I would go exactly opposite.
see, last time I looked, must have looked at a different website. Two Towers was the lowest ranked, and of
Maybe
my
you're
friends,
right.
Two Towers is the favorite.
Two Towers. I mean, that battle at which one is that?
Helm's Deep.
Helm's Deep.
Well,
is-
we'll get there next week. It's
really good until Minas Tirith, and then you're like, whoa.
yeah. There's great battle scenes.
No, so
Well,
yeah, we've got an epic. If you were like, I wish this had more sword fighting, hold on to your
Yeah.
butts.
Just you wait.
Yeah. Well, I want to. The thing I want to continue to is
Take
making
him
sure
down,
talking
Legolas.
about characters development and our favorites each movie, and talk about. We'll get to Pippin for real, and Pippin's development will kind of be an off movie. It's book stuff where he really grows a lot.
Even
but
still,
he's still a lot there in the films. You'll see it.
I feel like
but-
I feel like Mary has
His-
a pretty good growth in the film.
Yeah, they all do, but Pippin's kind of like cherry on top moment is in the books. And so
Okay.
but Pippin has always been kind of my favorite character cuz I think we're all supposed so when Tolkien wrote, like you kind of mentioned, it's hard to read cuz Tolkien describes everything, and I've told you guys this
my
before
gosh.
that
Oh,
when you would go on walks
This is
with
what I
Tolkien,
wanted you to mention.
when people would go on walks with J.R.R. Tolkien, they would stop going with him because he would stop at flower beds and stop for 20 minutes and just admire the flowers. And he wrote the same way. Like, he would describe everything in great detail.
For example,
and
when Sam goes
long
to
poems.
find the weed to give to Frodo to find the King's Foil, that's like 4 pages of Sam exploring different plants. And
It's great.
It's not this one, because this
God.
one has these kind of
It's
bridges on
hard.
the leaves. And then Sam sang a song. And it's not this one. And it's like,
And
bro.
songs are 4 pages long.
And here is that song.
Yeah, and so, but his whole writing style is just great. So anyway, it's just how he wrote.
Who
And I
else
feel like
writes
there's more
like
I
that?
wanted.
Does anybody?
He's got them. I'm sure there's
I'm
great
sure,
writers, but
it's so dense. I mean,
Yeah.
you can
That's
see how
unheard
thick
of,
the Lord
like
the Rings
the
is down there. Like, it's
Crazy.
That's the whole.
That's all 3 books there.
Yeah.
It's quite a bit. Well,
and that's why they had to take so much out. But yeah,
listen, we've been talking for 1,000 years. We have 2 more weeks of this.
can't wait.
I'm
All with
excited.
Josh. I'm so excited
Yeah,
to
man.
be 5-man for The Lord of the Rings. So we are going to watch Two Towers. I'm really excited. Two Towers is excellent, and really delves us in deep. And there's a very memed fact in Two Towers that has been done to death, and I can't wait to
Oh, boy.
talk to Nick about it, because it's been talked about to death forever. So hey, we're gonna watch Two Towers. Follow us on everything.
All of it.
TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. Please Instagram and YouTube before the government throws TikTok into a well.
We didn't actually say it was a hit. Just saying.
It's a hit. It's
Hit.
certified.
Just saying.
Is there a higher ranking than Hit?
It's a perfect movie. And yeah, join our Discord where we yak about Star Wars all the time, really angrily. And yeah, we'll catch you on the next one. Bye.